Welcome back to Pop Tabs, keeping tabs on all your pop culture topics. I'm your host, Matthew Yapp, and joining me today is...
Sam Smith.
And...
I'm Eben.
It's your first time, yeah?
It is.
Are you just so excited to be here?
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't be more thrilled to have you, but you know what I'm not thrilled about? The fact that Jordan Peele supposedly hates white people. Kinda. Maybe. We'll see. So basically, he was recently quoted in an interview saying, I don't see myself casting a white dude as the lead. And so that caused some immediate backlash. And he did go on to say that it's not that I don't like white dudes, it's just that I've seen that movie. So what are your guys' initial thoughts on the quote itself?
Good for him.
Okay.
I don't want to see more white dudes either.
That's fair.
I'm tired of it. The quote itself, I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. I don't need more white dudes either.
So what do you think?
I think it's, especially with the horror genre, like, we all know, like, there's a trope that's like, oh, if you're a black guy in a horror movie, you're die first, yeah. So I think it's interesting to, like, finally have a story that's different than that. Mm-hmm. So I think that he's, like, right, you know?
I can see, if, you know, you really pull back, I can see how it could be considered an inflammatory statement. Like, I kind of get it, but at the end of the day, I do think, you know, they're his movies. If he doesn't want to cast white dudes, he doesn't really have to.
No, if he doesn't want to cast white dudes, he can just ask Scarlett Johansson.
Everyone's favorite diverse actress. But yeah, I think that what he said is understandable, but even though we're all kind of in the same track, do you understand why people are angry?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I don't agree.
Yeah. I vibe it.
I get it to an extent, but I also think it's, like, dumb that people are mad about it.
Yeah. So basically, Peele claims that he's happy to be able to be working and making movies that star people of color, when in the past, like we've said, especially with horror, that's never been able to be done before. He's really emphasizing the fact that, you know, historically, if you look at, like, big, like, high-grossing movies, they're always starring white people, specifically white men, and so he doesn't necessarily want to. But with all that said, people are still saying it's an attack on white men. So even though we agree with it, is it an attack on white men? Is it discriminating against them?
Can you attack a white man?
It's a valid question.
Like,
I don't know, Sam, can you?
Genuinely, is that a real thing that exists?
Physically or emotionally?
Like, yes?
I mean, you can punch me.
Okay, but no.
But
aside from that, no, I don't think it's an attack on white dudes. I mean, with the type of movies he's making, like, I haven't seen Us yet, but Get Out doesn't work. Get Out doesn't work with a white dude.
No.
Mm-mm.
And I would assume Us doesn't either, because that's what Jordan Peele's going for.
That is actually a bit of what started this conversation. Is Us is not about race at all, and it could absolutely be done with a white family and have the exact same effect.
Like I said, I haven't seen it.
Right.
But yeah, it's not what he's going for, and I don't think it's an issue.
No.
If you want to go see a bunch of white dudes doing what white dudes do best, go see a Michael Bay movie.
I was curious, and so I looked at all the other movies that are coming out right now, all white leads, and so it's not like the past where, you know, if you're a black person, you literally can't see a movie starring you. If you're a white person, you can go see a movie starring you still. Jordan Peele not catering to you. It's kind of a situation of like, why is everything not made specifically for me? Like, it's the one movie, so I don't quite see the issue.
I don't either.
Yeah. Some people did take to Twitter, and one user, Sylvia Hoffman, did say, if that's not racist, in all caps, I don't know what is. I'd like to see a white director say they don't want to cast a black dude as the movie lead. His life would be ruined. You can't have it both ways. Do you think that if that statement was reversed and a white director was saying they don't want to cast a black person, that we'd be seeing a bigger issue here?
No, I'm sure it's been said before.
I think it would be a bigger issue, but I don't necessarily think that it would be I think that it would definitely be a bigger issue because black people are underrepresented.
Yeah.
Whereas white people are not. So I think it's more of like, yes, people would still be like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
But that would have a lot more of like a bad indication, you know what I mean?
I do kind of agree with you that I think it would be a bigger issue if it was a white director saying, I don't want to cast a black person. I also agree. I'm sure that's been said. But I think that we kind of would see it as more of a racist thing, where I don't see Jordan Peele, I don't think he's doing this out of racism. I don't think he's doing this out of like, a hatred of white people. I think he's doing this to diversify, and he like has a solid intention for why he's doing it. Where I think if a white director was like, I don't want to cast a black person, I don't think they're doing that for diversity's sake or storytelling's sake. I think they're doing that because they don't necessarily like black people.
Yeah.
Your favorite author is H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah. So this did bring up a wider conversation of reverse racism in Hollywood, and these kind of things do come up pretty often. You mentioned it with Scarlett Johansson. We see a lot of times that white characters are cast into minority roles. For namesake, do you think that this is kind of a similar thing where Jordan Peele's intentionally casting by race and that's a problem, or do you think because he's casting in race for diversity, it's different?
I think it's different. I mean, it's, like I said, it's this whole thing. Like, I don't want to say he started directing to increase diversity in Hollywood, but that's clearly been something he's trying to go for.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, because white people are not underrepresented.
Underrepresented.
Yeah, that one. But because they're not that word, I can't talk. It's not reverse racism because there's nothing. You're not oppressed.
Right.
I think it'd be different if he was like, I hate white people and I never want them in my movies. But he's had like white people in his movies, they're just not the lead roles.
Both of his movies have white characters, yeah.
They're just not the lead, and I think that that's like obviously purposeful.
You could arguably say that even Get Out still had more white people than black people.
It did, yeah. Like, about 90% of that cast was white. And again, Get Out is kind of a different case because, you know, it did rely on the fact that he was black, but Us also has a good, pretty chunk of their entire cast was white. And so I think it's more, this is people sort of being offended that for the first time a minority is being like, hey, this isn't necessarily for you, and it's kind of like that SNL Beyonce skit where they're just like, everything usually is. And so I don't think people quite know how to handle it. Not to speak down to people who feel that way, because I'm not going to speak for your emotions, but maybe evaluate why you're so mad about it. Do you think, though, going forward with his career, that this is going to negatively impact Peele?
Not at all.
No?
If anything, it'll help.
Okay. What about you?
I think he's doing too well right now for like something like this. It's really not that big of a deal to be something that would like hurt his career at all.
Yeah,
I was really concerned with where that was going because he started with. I think he's doing too well right now.
Too well. We gotta knock him down a peg. No, I
don't like this at all.
I do kind of feel like what's going to happen is you're going to get like a really small amount of people who are going to be like, because some people already are saying like, I'm never going to see a Jordan Peele thing again because he's racist.
But to be fair, how many of those people have even seen either of his movies yet?
That's what I was saying.
If they're genuinely mad about a black guy being the lead, they probably haven't seen either of those movies.
Yeah, I really do feel like if you're offended by this kind of idea that minorities are going to be cast, then I don't think you were heading out to the theaters anyways, you know what I mean?
No, probably not.
But you know what else was heading to the theaters, then stopped, then became a VR game, then that stopped? Five Nights at Freddy's.
Is it really supposed to be a movie?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I thought you were kidding.
No. Five Nights at Freddy's has had like 4 books, a movie deal, I think going on like 7 video games now.
See, I stopped playing that in middle school, so I did not know.
Yeah, most people did, but they kept it up. But the kind of issue and why we're talking about it today is Scott Cawthon recently took down promotional art for a new VR game for the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. And the reason it's used is because it was using uncredited fan art for the professional promotion piece. So what are our initial thoughts on that?
Who let that happen?
An entire team of
I know
well-paid
that.
people.
But who? Like really who?
Yeah.
I mean, I forgot that Five Nights at Freddy's existed.
Yeah.
But initial thoughts on that. Reading about it a little bit more in depth, I do think it was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like, because there's so much material out there for Five Nights at Freddy's, I doubt he was like, this fan art's better than anything we've put
Ever.
out. So we're going to use it for our game. I think it was more, here's art.
Yeah.
Let's use it. It looks good. It fits our aesthetic. But no, I don't think it was malicious in any way.
No, I think it's what we in the industry would call a whoopsie. I think they really had zero intent behind it. I think it was just like you said. They were like, yeah, we need art. Should they probably have spent a lot more time working on their art and checking it? Probably, but seeing as how we've discussed, they turn out Five Nights at Freddy's games like it's nothing. I'm sure the filtering process isn't super great.
Yeah.
That being said, he did apologize, he made the mistake, but it did bring up kind of a wider conversation on how does fan art work in kind of media. So something that got brought up is the fact that if you look, the actual character models that have been professionally made and the character models that were used in this fan art are near identical. And so it kind of gave off, I don't know, a question of how are we supposed to differentiate, and are we really going to be mad at someone for using fan art that is a character they made? Because more or less he just remade someone else's character. What are your thoughts?
I mean, looking into it, again, it wasn't Cawthon that okayed it. It was an employee of the whatever company he contracted to do the VR. So if I had to guess, it was like an intern that was like, here's a whole bunch of art choices. And then a higher up was like, I like this one.
Yeah.
So I think in this case specifically, there's just so much material for Five Nights at Freddy's that I can see how it gets sort of blurry between fan art and actual art. And also, it's not a particularly, I don't want to seem like I'm talking down about it, but it's not a particularly creative art style.
No.
I mean, because it was an indie game, it was rendered on probably open source software.
Yeah.
Which is helpful because it makes it super accessible to people. But at the same time, you can't really claim ownership of, well, I guess you can claim ownership, but you can't, I don't know where I'm going with this. But it brings up the difference between art style and art direction.
Yeah.
Like, Five Nights has a very unique art direction, but as far as the style goes, I mean, anyone can recreate it with minimal effort.
Yeah. I mean, and we've seen dozens upon dozens of, like you said, this kind of art direction of like creepy animatronic, like children's game turns spooky. Like we've seen so many fan games that do the exact same formula, that look the exact same, to the point where like people have questioned, is it actually part of the franchise? So.
Right.
What do you think about the idea of like, can you be mad about a character being recreated when it's so simple?
I think it comes down to like, they didn't credit this person that made it, and I think that's really the only issue.
Right.
Because I think if they just messaged this person, they were like, hey, we're gonna use this, is that okay? And they were like, yeah, it wouldn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So because of that, they do have these characters trademarked, but I mean, everyone has just about every character trademark, Nintendo has Mario trademarked, but there's so much Mario art out there. And usually, companies don't kind of hone in on fan art as an issue. Do you think that's a problem? Should companies have a kind of right over a character design?
God, no. No, IP is stupid. IP being intellectual property, not internet provider, but, or whatever IP stands for. But no, I think the idea of IP isn't. I mean, just look at Disney and how much they own.
Right.
And I mean, they did it to some extent with Star Wars Extended Universe, but they essentially wiped all of that clean. And theoretically, because they own it now, if any Star Wars anything that isn't directly licensed from Disney, they could pursue legal action.
Yeah.
Which I think, as a whole for the industry, whether it be Disney or Five Nights at Freddy's or Minecraft or whatever, I think it's bad. I think it's dangerous for independent creators who need like a jumping off point.
I was gonna say the same thing pretty much.
Okay, with that thought, because I kind of agree. I get the idea that like, I don't know, people have to take inspiration from somewhere, and I don't have a problem with someone like, what is wrong with doodling something that someone else has created. You just like the design. But do you think people should be able to make profit? Because we see a lot of times merchandise made. Redbubble is an entire website made that you're just using other people's characters' designs to make merchandise. Should people be able to sell something that someone else has essentially designed?
No.
No?
Well, because that's just dumb. If you didn't think of it, don't try and make profit off of it,
But we did just say that, it's a good jumping off point for artists.
I think there's a difference between drawing something that you like and trying to learn their style to improve yourself versus I'm going to draw this and then I'm going to sell it and I'm going to make money off of it. If there's no if you say draw something and you make it different, even if it's someone else's character, if you make it different, that's one thing. But if you just draw something that already exists and you're like, okay, I'm going to sell this,
Gotcha.
That becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yes and no for me. I think that if it's trace artwork, you trace something and then throw it on a t-shirt and sell it.
Yeah.
That should probably be grounds for having it taken down or something. But if you just use a character and then draw it on your own and then sell it, I mean, yeah, it technically wasn't created by you, but you're doing all the work.
Right.
And I don't think that, not to cut you off, but I don't think that at that point the creator has any license to it.
I think that's where it comes down to for me is honestly just effort. If it's very clear that someone spent time, an artist has made this design, and yes, they're pulling inspiration from something or maybe a character from something, but they're making a very different look. I do think that there's something there to be said about their effort could earn a profit rather than just a company being like, no, I made Link, and so you can't use this at all. So yeah, I think it really does just come down to how much effort's put into something. But what value do you think fan content has on franchises? Because we see a lot of times games like Five Nights at Freddy's that are independent creators that they are kind of springboarded into the limelight because so many fans do spend time making artwork, games, things like that. Do you think that it's helpful to franchises? Do you think it damages them in the sense that their kind of original idea is pulled away?
I think it's helpful more than it would hurt them because it's kind of a free advertisement in a sense.
Yeah.
It's oh, I really like this game, so I drew this really cool thing from it, and people can be like, oh, that is nice. I'll look at this game now because you like it. So I think that it can hurt them in a sense. If Five Nights at Freddy's had just got started and then someone else completely remade it and made it better, that would be a problem. But clearly they're doing fine.
Well, they're making a lot of things. I don't know about fine.
Okay, that's fair.
You can burn a lot of cookies. That doesn't mean you're making really good cookies.
I feel like that's an attack at that one bad at baking.
Are you bad at baking?
Yeah.
Well, get good. Well. Going back to fan content, I can't think of a single property that has been hurt by fan art.
I can. Overwatch. And what I mean by that is Overwatch and Blizzard have had to pull a lot of fan art because people won't stop making porn, a lot of it. And so I do think it can honestly damage a franchise because when people, kind of put their own spin on characters, we'll say, I think it can take a game like Overwatch that's supposed to be a happy, family-friendly game and turn it into something a little more adult that maybe if a mom Googles Overwatch Tracer and finds something very different, she's not going to want her kid to play Overwatch anymore.
All right, fair enough. You got me there. Although I do think that the Overwatch developers ruined Overwatch a lot more than the fan art ever could.
Valid.
Rest in peace, Mercy. But... yeah, okay, so you got me with one out of the countless properties.
I think a lot of franchises have been hurt by fan porn, but that's just me.
That's I don't want to get into that with Five Nights at Freddy's at all.
Oh, I'm sure there's
I'm sure there is, but I don't want to talk about it.
We do want to talk about Cardi B's a weirdo. She did some things, man. She did some things. So basically, she's recently come under fire because a video resurfaced of her on a podcast discussing things that she used to do, specifically in the sense that she seemed like she was bragging about the fact that she would drug men and then rob them. And she would do the she says to survive, make money, do what she had to do. And people immediately caught backlash because, she's admitting to a crime, but they're also saying that, it kind of not only glorifies that crime, but it's also sort of reflects things we've been seeing in Hollywood recently with people like R. Kelly, drugging and raping young girls. And so what are your initial thoughts on all this?
I have a couple thoughts. On one hand, I mean, she said she was doing this when she was when she was stripping. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever looked into it. Strippers aren't poor though. Depending on the area, you make bank. So I feel like promising to sleep with guys and then taking them back to a hotel and drugging them and robbing them might be going a little overboard with the reasoning of like, I did it to survive. I don't know if that's a great place, but on the other hand, in I don't know, like her defense, I guess, comparing her to R. Kelly is not great.
Yeah.
Because I don't think drugging and robbing guys is really on the same scale as pedophilia.
Yeah, it's a false equivalency.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't necessarily think that she was glorifying it because she's never done a song that's like, yeah, I drugged and robbed guys. Whereas there's a lot of rappers now that are like, oh, I shoot people, I do this, I do that. And I think that they're like, yeah, talking about it might be in a sense, but I think that when it comes down to it, she wasn't necessarily trying to glorify it. I think it was more of like I did this, I'm not proud of it, I'm sorry. Because she has apologized for it several times.
I think at the time, the video clip on that specific interview, it did seem like she was glorifying it because she didn't seem necessarily apologetic. She was just like, oh yeah, I used to do this, crazy, right? Where I do think she's apologetic about it now. I think she recognized that it was wrong now. You're correct that strippers do tend to make quite a bit of money, but she was in a very poor area, and I don't necessarily know what her costs were, so it's very possible she did need to do that to survive, and so I can completely sympathize with that. People do what they gotta do, and I also really think people have taken it wildly too far to start comparing it to people like R. Kelly and the people from the Me Too movement, saying that like we've said, pedophilia is nowhere near the same level as drugging and robbing people.
No.
I think it's kind of a gross false equivalency.
I also think you can, she was doing this before she was famous.
Yeah.
Whereas R. Kelly and Bill Cosby kind of used their fame as a way to get these girls interested in them. And so I think it's unfair to say oh, if she was going to these men's houses and she was like, I'm famous, hang out with me,
and
let's
then
do
drug
this.
and rob them.
Yeah, that would be I think there'd be far more of a moral line there, at least for me.
Yeah.
Because it was she's using her status instead of just doing it,
I'm
not saying it's good.
No, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. It also has brought up an interesting point. If you remember a few months back, there was a conversation more or less brought up by Liam Neeson where he mentioned that, he thought about murdering a black guy. There's not really a better way to phrase that. He went on a weird racist tirade where he was like, yeah, I was really mad against any black person, so I walked around the streets and wanted to fight one. It was weird. He's apologized and said he shouldn't have brought that back up. But some people are comparing it to that, saying, should Cardi B have brought up that? Because she says, she wanted to talk about it so she can kind of let people know that these are real things people are struggling with. But do you think celebrities necessarily need to bring up things they went through in the past?
I think it helps people that are going through that. So, I don't know how many women are out there drugging and robbing men, but
probably a decent amount, honestly.
But I think that it is a fair thing to say, bring light to situations and say, this is happening in our world and we should kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, on a whole, I would say for people, no, don't bring it up. Especially if it's Liam Neeson and you wanted to kill a black guy.
That was the weirdest.
That's okay. That's weird. Different. I should have addressed it. That's not what I agree
with. But
it wasn't even like someone brought up that he did it. He straight up was just like, yeah, I wanted to kill a black guy. What a weird. Anyway.
It was weird. But I think as a whole, no, you should not bring it up. But as a celebrity, because celebrities are not people. No. It works. I mean, Liam Neeson straight up said he wanted to murder a black guy when he was younger. And as you said, it was sort of a talking point a couple months ago.
Yeah. Wasn't a good talking point for him personally. Kind of wrecked his career a little bit, but...
I mean, it didn't. I mean, nobody, it was bad then, but there's no ongoing, like, cancel Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
So I think in that very specific case, and this case with Cardi B, admitting to it, and whether you're apologizing for the action or apologizing because you got caught, it still works as a form of PR, and I think it's better to come out and say that you did it and at least seem apologetic than it is to have somebody dig it up.
Gotcha.
I think it's a little different with depending on what it is, because say like Demi Lovato, she talks about mental illness and like like eating disorders and stuff. That's bringing light to it, and that's like a positive thing. Wanting to punch a black guy, not a positive thing. Maybe don't talk about it. Maybe like.
Yeah, I think your intent does matter a lot.
And I think Cardi B is sort of on like a line here because
She
I think
is.
she's trying, like, I don't think that she necessarily realized that like, hey, this is like not something I should necessarily talk about because it can ruin my career. I think she more wanted to bring light to like strippers don't necessarily have easy lives depending on where they are and that kind of thing.
And see, I do think Cardi B is on a little bit of the wrong side of the line because I agree that celebrities talking about certain things is very helpful. Demi Lovato is a great example. You know, Brendan Urie talking about his addiction. Like those are great examples of more or less kind of stories of like, hey, don't do this. This can get better. Where Cardi B was more or less just sharing like, yeah, that happened to me. I did that, and there's not really like anything being offered. She wasn't even necessarily like telling people for going through that. Like, yeah, it gets better. She was just more like, yeah, you know, me too. And so I think that we're seeing she's not really offering any form of help, which I agree with you. I think if you're going to bring these things up, maybe help someone. Had Liam Neeson brought up like, hey, I wanted to kill a black guy, but don't, like, maybe it would have been different.
I don't think that would help with him.
Yeah, Liam Neeson, that was so embarrassing, dude.
It was weird.
It was really weird. That being said, speaking of weird things, what are our closing thoughts on this story? Anything else we talked about today?
Five Nights at Freddy's stopped being good after the first one.
Facts.
I didn't play the first one.
Also a fact. Cardi B, I think, kind of keep some stuff in the closet for a while. Five Nights at Freddy's, probably stop making games for a while. And Jordan Peele, keep making movies for a while.
R. Kelly, stop
great.
trapping people in the closet.
Yeah, R. Kelly, please stop everything. Just everything. But I've been your host, Matthew Yapp. Joining me today was...
Sam Smith.
And
I'm Eben.
thanks for watching. Welcome back to Pop Tabs, keeping tabs on all your pop culture topics. Good to run through. Okay, round 2.
I like this.
I was aware of the situation. I was trying to defend myself and look like less of a moron, but shocker, Phil sends me down the mother